Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Ray Reviews Things. Today I'm going to be reviewing Little Fires Everywhere. Alright, so the network, it comes on Hulu, like I said. There's 6 of the 8 episodes already out. I think it's a staggered launch, kind of like Hulu does. There's 6 of the I believe there's 8 episodes. There's 6 of 8 that's out right now. I'm hoping that I think the next 2 should be coming out sometime soon because I don't know how much longer we can wait. We can't drag this on forever, you know? So, the plot. So, Little Fires Everywhere. It's a Hulu original, like I said. It's based on the best-selling novel of the same name from Celeste Ng. It's set in Shaker Heights, Ohio. And I'm just going to read you a little blurb as I found it on the interwebs, right? So, set in Shaker Heights, Ohio, the show tells the story of Elena Richardson, who's played by Reese Witherspoon, a woman who thrives on structure and rules, and her family. When Mia Warren, who's played by Kerry Washington, an artist who's been living a nomadic lifestyle as a single mother with her daughter, Pearl, arrives in town, it threatens everything that Mrs. Richardson has known. All right, so that's the overall plot. All right. So if I had to give you an example of similar shows to this, I would say Big Little Lies, because that's also about the sort of suburban, like sleepy town and like what goes on. Also stars Reese Witherspoon. Revenge, which I feel like some people might argue that one, but Revenge in the sense that it's a very dark kind of show. I would say it's not very lighthearted. It's not very like happy-go-lucky. It's definitely there's a mystery involved in like who is Mia. We're trying to figure out who she is, and a lot of the characters in the show spend a lot of time trying to figure out who she is, right? And then the other show I would say, which bear with me, I would say Gilmore Girls. So if you have seen Little Fires Everywhere, hit me up on either Instagram, on my website, or via email, which are all Ray Reviews Things. Email is rayreviewsthings@gmail.com. Website is rayreviewsthings.com. And email is rayreviewsthings@gmail.com. Don't know if I said that before, but hit me up in any one of the 3 places and let me know what you think of these similar shows. This is just me after seeing 6 episodes in my brain trying to figure out like what are the pieces and the elements that it reminds me of. And so I think that if you like Gilmore Girls for the sort of like mother-daughter, small town, like silly little drama, but there's also like more like a deeper story underlying there between mother-daughter, I think that's a good frame of reference. Like I said, Revenge, because it's very dark. I think it has a very dark connotation, the show. And then Big Little Lies, because it's that sort of sleepy suburban town with like stuff popping off and like a lot of behind closed doors kind of drama going on. Right, so talking now about the cast. When we talk about the cast, there's Reese Witherspoon, like I said. She plays Elena Richardson, who's the star of the show. There's also Kerry Washington, who plays Mia Warren, who's also a star of the show. There's Lexi Underwood, who I have found to be a gem in the show. She's Pearl's daughter. I mean, she plays Pearl, who's Mia's daughter. And I think she's a teenager. She's like sophomore in high school in the show. There's Megan Stott, who plays Izzy, who's Elena's daughter. She's also, I think, in high school in the show. She's like a freshman, I believe. And then there's Joshua Jackson, who plays Bill, who's Elena's husband. He's not so much of a focus of a character, I would say, personally, but I do think it's worth mentioning because I think he's a pretty well-known face as far as the cast goes. All right, so genre and setting. So I would say that the show gives off a very crime, mystery, thriller vibe. It's drama, but it's more dark drama than just like regular family drama. It's like, it seems like the kind of show where I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, oh, there goes a dead body, popped up another one. Not that happens. I'm not going to give spoilers. That does not happen. But that's just the kind of gritty feel that it leaves with you, that it's sort of like a lot of things could happen. It's set in the 90s. Like Mia's 90s fashion is very simple and understated. She's just jeans and t-shirt, which I mean is timeless, but they're not exactly like 90s style, like light blue jeans, denim wash. They're more like bell bottoms. I don't know how to describe it, but at first I was gonna say that it's not very your typical 90s fashion, and the more that I think about it, I think it is 90s fashion. I think they did a good job with that. I just think it's super understated, and so I think because of the way the fashion looks, it's very easy to forget that this is set in the 90s. Although Reese Witherspoon's character does have the car phone and the whole 9 yards. So there's little callbacks, but I think it's meant to be understated enough that you can put this in like pretty much any decade from like the 90s. This could be like the early 2000s, this could be the 10s, this could be the 20s, like that we're going in right now. So I think that that might have been more intentional than I realized at first glance. Let's see, highlights. So I think it's a very like honest and sort of like unflinching look at small town life. It talks about race, class, gender identity, and how all of those things overlap. We see from Elena's perspective, which is Reese Witherspoon's character, what it's like to be a mother, a white mother in like this like suburban sort of like perfect family, and that there are struggles still there, even though that's her reality. But then we also see Mia's experience as like a black woman who has a daughter. She's unmarried, or we think she's unmarried. We know she doesn't have a spouse, right? We know she doesn't have a partner. We know that it's just her and her daughter. So she's raising a black daughter in like the 90s in this in this like majority white town, and we're seeing what all of those things, all of those intersections, what they mean for each of the characters. We're seeing how Pearl, the daughter, is dealing with like being black in a school where most of the people around her are white, so she's finding how to navigate white culture, but also trying to figure out how to not lose who she is as a black woman. There are a lot of obvious references to race. There's some heated conversations about race that happen in the show. And I think Pearl's character to me is interesting because Pearl is a teen. She's a sophomore in high school. And so her mom moves around a lot. She's always been moving around since she was a kid. She doesn't really have that stability. And so I find that like her take on her, I think that her experience is particularly interesting because you see her, but she's not quite sure where she fits in a community because she's never really had a community. She's always been moving around. So we see her be the opposite of her mother in a lot of ways. Mia Warren, which is Kerry Washington's character, she's very like, I will not let any white people take advantage of me. I'm not stupid. I'm on my guard around you. And her daughter is very much like, I'm craving community, I'm craving friends, I'm craving wholesomeness, I'm craving like family. So we see that their boundaries are a lot different because a lot of things that Pearl, obviously because she's a teen, but also I think because she's looking for that sort of family, will let slide, where her mom is just like, don't try me, I'm not the one. So that I think is a very interesting look at through both their lenses and how they navigate life, because they do have a lot of love for each other, mother and daughter, and they are very close, but they see the world almost completely differently. And then on the other side, we see Elena, who is struggling to sort of find that match with with one of her daughters, or I guess trying to connect with all of her kids in different ways. And so again, it goes back to that idea of like, what does it mean to be a mother? Because there are some things that are universal to both Mia and Elena, and then there's some things that are specifically unique to each of them. And both of those themes I think are very, very good in exploring. On the subject of race, I did think that for me, there was like one scene that stands out in particular to me. It's not a spoiler because it's in the trailer, but there's an argument between Elena and Mia where they're arguing, and Elena says, you know, you're not a good mother. Or like Elena says, you're not a good mother. A good mother makes good choices. To which Mia, the black woman, says, you didn't make good choices, you had good choices. And that to me is sort of like the crux of like what the tension is between both women. It's the idea of like, how do you view the world? Elena's very sheltered. She comes from a town where she had like a lot of stability. She came from generational wealth because she makes reference to things that like the fact that her parents own 2 houses, you know? So little things like that. It's like she comes from that sort of stability that a lot of people don't have, especially if you are a minority or a woman of color. And so the way that she looks at motherhood, the way that she looks at society is very, very, very sort of like rose-colored glasses, and it's very black and white. Either you're a good mother because you got married, you stayed in one place, you gave your kids like stability, you sent them to the best school, they had the best of everything, or you're a bad mother because you move around a lot, or your kid isn't as grounded, or I don't like that you don't sit and have dinner with your kids every night. So that to me, and obviously Mia's opinion is on the opposite end of the spectrum, almost like painfully so, you know, where she's like, it's not about like whether or not I made good choices, because in certain situations I don't have good choices to make. So that I think is a very interesting debate, and I find that those are my favorite parts of the show, when they are exploring the idea of race. And I'm surprised because I don't always fall in the side of the black woman. Sometimes I'm just like, okay, well, right, damn, Mia, that was kind of intense, or the way that you look at things are also still very black and white. So yeah. So another thing that I really liked, I love the children in the show. I feel like it's very often that we get teens in these sort of grown-up movies or in these grown-up shows that aren't able to carry the weight of what is happening, or we don't give them the opportunity to. So in a lot of times when we see like these teens in these like really deep dramatic shows, it's because like they just are there as sort of like a filler. Like the mom needs a daughter, so here's a daughter, but she doesn't really have the dimension of like a fully functioning human being that can process these thoughts and like have these complex feelings. And I feel like the teens on this show were given something that they can work with. I think Pearl and Izzy specifically, I think what they've been challenged with bringing to the show, I think they definitely stepped up to the characters. I think that Pearl is a really good balance for her mom Mia. I think Izzy's a good balance for her mom, Elena. And when they have those one-on-one moments, to me, I think that's where you see the biggest difference in the parenting style. Elena has more children, but I find Izzy to be, I think, the most complex, because she's not like her mom. She's a lot different from her mom. And so they butt heads a lot. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of painful to watch, because you can see the moments where like the parenting is being done what I would consider wrong. But I just kind of want to jump through the screen and be like, oh my God, please, hello, please, I'm begging you, your child just needs blank. And I feel that way a lot also with Mia when I see her parent Pearl. It's almost like she can't understand why this teen just wants to be a teen. I feel like she's had to like sort of grow Pearl into this person that had to be a fully formed adult like when she was too young. And I think that even now, as we're seeing Pearl struggle with the idea of like, I want to be a teen, I want to do teenage things and like have a crush and like do those stupid silly little things, I think that we see her mom push back a lot. And again, I just want to jump through the screen and be like, hey, Mia, she's a kid, like hello. And I think that, again, getting back to my original point, I think that the teens in the show do a good job of carrying the script. And like, I find actually sometimes that I'm like, I kind of find your storyline to be more interesting. I want to see more of you because you make more complex characters. I think especially because they're not fully formed, where I think Elena and Mia, their characters are already well defined because they're fully grown adults that have been doing this for years and years and years. But I think the kids are interesting because they're coming into who they are, and you see them playing with different aspects of their identity. Now, talking about drawbacks, or flaws, drawbacks. I think that Elena and Mia are sort of pitched as these, like, they're both the focal points of the story, but I find that you know a lot more about Elena than you do about Mia. And, excuse me, maybe that's intentional. Maybe they're not giving you any insight into who she is because they're saving it for the next 2 episodes. But I find so far, for being 6 episodes in, I feel like Mia is the more complicated character, and to me, I find that a lot of times I think she's just very angry. I think she's very rigid, and I wish I had a little bit more background into who she is and how she got to be where she is, because again, I know that it's complicated, and you can tell that she's lived a specific kind of life, a rough life in some degree, to some degree, in some regard, because of the way that she reacts to things, the way that she responds to things. And I identify with her in a lot of ways, but also it's still very hard for me to sympathize with her sometimes, because I feel like, okay, you're going too far, and I don't feel like the situation warrants the level of intensity that you're giving it. But again, I think if I knew more about her backstory and where she came from, then it would be a lot easier for me to understand how she got to be the person that's doing this at this particular moment. Like, what led her to these choices. And I feel like we get that with Elena. They give you her backstory in quite a few different ways. And there are even some cutscenes that go back to Elena's like youth, but we haven't really gotten much of that from Mia. I think we got like one throwback scene to when she was younger, and it was very, very brief, and I feel like it needed a lot of context. So that, I think, is a challenge. I did Google because I'm curious, damn it, and I want to know. So I do know how it ends, even though I didn't read the book. But again, I think that I need them to show me. In order to make it a good show or like a great show, I need you to show me. I can't just rely on how good the book was or how good the story itself was from the book, because then you didn't really do any work with the show. You know, you just kind of rested on the goodness of the book. The last thing that's a drawback for me, I don't do cringe very well. I find that if something is particularly cringy or embarrassing, then I will fast forward through it, because my little heart can only take so much, you know. And I find that with this, there are some cringy moments where I find myself fast forwarding, because I'm just like, bro, I cannot, I don't want to. This is very awkward, and very painful. So those moments, I find there are a few cringe moments to me anyway, where I'm just like, God, please make it end. And I do fast forward a little bit to get through some of it, depending on how cringe it is. But be warned, there are some cringe moments. Yeah, and I find that I get those cringe moments a lot when they're interacting with their children, particularly in like conflict situations where I'm just like, bro, oh my God. And I don't know if it's because I'm on the younger side, so I identify more with the children, or if it's because I don't know. I think that might be it. I'm on the younger side. I'm much closer to the kids' age than I am to the parents' age. So to me, it's like, this is painful to watch you interact with your daughter this way, because I understand where your daughter's coming from so much more than I do where you're coming from. But yeah, those are the cringe moments that I'm talking about. Now, if I'm going to get into my favorite characters, right? See, I want to root for Mia, and I feel like I identify with Mia being a Black woman, being like, you know, just like knowing what it's like to be a Black woman in America and all of that struggle, and imagining putting a kid on top of that, being a single mother, all of those things, you know, being poor, which I think she's poor. We didn't really get an answer to that just yet, but things like that. I'm just like, I want to root for her, and I identify with her, and then I see her in her moments of just like anger, where I feel like her anger is just almost still very unjustified, and the way that she directs it and the people that she chooses to direct it at, I find it's very hard for me to be like, okay, I get it. And again, I think that goes back to me not knowing much about her background, so it's very hard for me to say this is why she is the way that she is, and it's justified or not. Haven't been given an opportunity to make that decision for myself. I say all that to say that the characters that I think I identify with most, or that I like the most, I think are the teens in the show. They're the kids. There's Izzy and Pearl specifically. I feel like, again, I've mentioned this a lot, but I think that the actors that play them, they were up to the task. And I think they actually are teens, which is even more beautiful, because they're being given these complex roles of kids, and they're able to translate it well. And so, yeah. I like Izzy, I like Pearl. Can't stand Elena's older daughter. Don't remember her name. And one day we will have a conversation about her, because I just feel like that daughter is wild. I don't know. I think that's basically it for my review, guys. But overall, I think the cast is pretty strong. I think Reese and Kerry Washington, they are doing phenomenal in their roles as both Elena and Mia. Very complicated characters, and I think the kids, again, I have to tip my hat to them because they are living up to their hype. You know, and I think there's a big buzz around them right now, and I hope they go on to have like really successful careers. I don't know if this show will go into a season 2 because I think it's billed as like a limited series. But I do enjoy it, and I'm hoping that they can wrap up and answer all of my questions in the next 2 episodes, because I believe those are the last 2 episodes. Because if they don't, then this will be like a huge disappointment based on how the story is going. My thoughts, if you've seen the show, I don't think my theory on who started the fire, which again, if you've read the book or if you've watched the trailer, you know there's this big buildup about like this fire. I think, and they start talking about the fire literally 2 seconds into the first episode, so I don't consider this a spoiler. And nobody knows who started the fire, but I think it's Elena. I think Izzy would be the obvious choice, because if you watch the show, I think she's a pretty obvious choice, but I think it's Elena. Yeah. So comment on Instagram, email me, on YouTube, wherever, but let me know who you think started the fire. And let's take bets. And let's talk after the next 2 episodes come out so we can really get to the bottom of who started that fire. All right, guys, so that is my review. Pretty lengthy. I hope I didn't give any spoilers. I feel like I was very conscious of the things and the examples that I referenced to make sure that they were only things that I know I've seen in the trailer, or like general things that are out there already. So thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, share the video. You can find me on Instagram again, Ray Reviews Things. You can find me on my website, rayreviewsthings.com, or you can email me at rayreviewsthings@gmail.com. Yeah, guys, that's it. Bye.